ṣiṣẹ́ wa fúnlẹ̀ wa, fún ilẹ̀ ìbí wa. Ká gbéga, ká gbéga, ká gbéga fáyé rí. Ìgbàgbọ́ wa ni pé bá ti bẹ̀rù làbọ̀ mọ́. Ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká jọlá. Ìṣọ̀kan àti òmìnira ní kẹ́jẹ́ ká máa lépa. Ìtẹ̀síwájú fọ́npọ̀ ire àtòhun tó dára. Ọmọ Oòduà dìde, bọ́ sípò ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ. Ìwọ ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ gbogbo adúláwọ̀.
Electorate facts in Nigeria. 1. 1959 Nnamdi Azikiwe Igbo man had coalition government with a Fulani man Tafawa Balewa. 2. 1963 Nnamdi Azikiwe Igbo man again had another coalition government with a Fulani man Tafawa Balewa. 3. 1979 Alex Ifeanyi Ekwueme an Igbo man had coalition government with the Fulani man Shagari and Ekwueme became vice president. 4. 1983 Alex Ifeanyi Ekwueme an Igbo man again had coalition government with the Fulani man Shagari and Ekwueme became vice president. 5. In 1993 Igbo nation voted for a Fulani man, Bashir Tofa, in Nigeria presidential election. The same year, a shadowy organization, the Association for Better Nigeria ABN, headed by Arthur Nzira an Igbo man conspired with the Abuja High Court, with Justice Basi Ikpim, a Calabar woman from Cross River State presiding, issues an order restraining NEC from conducting the presidential election. And eventually disqualified June 12 election won by a full-blooded Yoruba man MKO Abiola on the 23rd of June 1993. 6. In 1999 Igbo nation voted for their son Obasanjo an Igbo man with a Yoruba mother and he became the president of the country called Nigeria. 7. In 2003 Igbo nation voted for their son again Obasanjo an Igbo man with a Yoruba mother and he became the president of the country called Nigeria. 8. In 2007 Igbo nation voted for a Fulani Manchu Musa Yadu and he became the president of the country called Nigeria. 9. In 2011 Igbo nation voted for Jonathan, an Ijaw man. He became Nigeria president. Jonathan populated his government with Igbo people and this can also be regarded as coalition government. 10. In 2015 Igbo nation voted for Jonathan an Ijaw man. 11. In 2019 Igbo nation voted for Atiku a Fulani man. Thanks for listening. YYF changing the course of history.
Number 5. Sources of revenue of the federal government is central bank. So this time around, I'm going to go slow. I'm going to go very, very slow so that you can appreciate certain things I want you to appreciate on this central bank of Nigeria. You'll be shocked. You know, it's another Fulani lady that has been positioned to be the governor. But you will know from my lecture today that 60% of the earning of the Central Bank of Nigeria comes from Yoruba land. I'm going to show you. Central Bank of Nigeria earns interest, that is tax income, by keeping and trading the proceeds from NNPC oil revenue and the Federal Inland Revenue Services income from taxes. So that is how Central Bank of Nigeria generates income. All this NNPC revenue is kept in CBN. All the revenue collected by the Federal Inland Revenue are kept with the CBN. It also collects interest wait for this, from investing foreign reserves, repatriation of unutilized Dutch auction, interest on Dutch auction account by deposit money banks, inward money transfer. I'm going to tell you more about that inward money transfer and Dutch auction purchases. Agreeing to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. Excuse me. Agreeing to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics and Economic Initiative, that's my organization, which I founded a long year ago. 60% of the CBN earnings comes from Yoruba land because of the 8 categories of receipts for the CBN out of the possible 15 sources of income come essentially from the Yoruba land. There are 15 categories of sources of income of the Central Bank of Nigeria. 8 of this category comes essentially from Yoruba land. And I'm going to concentrate on that 8. Number 1 is income from capital inflow that kept Nigerian foreign exchange in check. You see, there's something you mix, folks. It's something you mix. Recently, when they were talking about oil reserve, that 1 billion will be used to fight Boko Haram from the oil reserve. No. See, I'm going to explain something to you. There are some capital inflow from abroad, from investors that are coming to invest into the Nigerian economy. According to the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission, name this, let me tell you again. Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission. This is an organization, government agency that registers or that keeps tracks of foreign countries that are coming into Nigeria to do business. Now, this is their report. It's very beautiful when I read it. They said that 90% of foreign investors establish their investment in Yoruba. So when you have foreign investors from North America coming into Nigeria, they establish their businesses in Yoruba. Foreign investors coming from across Europe, they establish their businesses in Yoruba. Foreign investors coming from Russia, they come to Yoruba. Foreign investors coming from China into Nigeria, they establish their business in Yoruba. So 90% of foreign exchange that is coming into Nigeria comes through the Yoruba land. And this money is kept with CBN. Another one is interest on Dutch auction account held by deposit money bank. CBN report shows that 75% of all bank branches in Nigeria are located in Yoruba land. Do you know what that means? All the banks in Nigeria, their branches, 75% of all their branches are located in Nigeria. So when you have branches, 75% of all bank branches in Nigeria, that means 75% of all savings in Nigeria comes from Yoruba. So when an Igbo man wants to go and borrow money in the bank, Yoruba are paying 75% of his loan. When an Hausa man goes to the bank to borrow money, it is Yoruba that is paying 75% of his loan. But all of this is not beneficial to us. It is beneficial to the Fulani because they control the CBN. Inward money transfer now. According to the CBN records, 85% of money transfer from abroad comes through Yoruba. So when you go abroad, you send money home to your bank, to everything, blah, blah, blah. It comes through the Yoruba. This money is used to sustain the Nigerian economy. It is also from Yoruba, not from the north. Everything is coming through Yoruba land, but the presidency is controlled by the Gambari Hausa Fulani. The National Assembly is controlled by the Hausa Fulani. The judiciary is controlled by the Hausa Fulani. The Nigerian military is controlled by the Hausa Fulani. The intelligence agency is controlled by the Hausa Fulani. The civil service is controlled by the Hausa Fulani. Yet they are not contributing anything to the Nigerian economy. That's why the Minister for Finance said 40% of Nigeria GDP is from Lagos. 20% of Nigerian gross domestic product is from Ogun. 40 plus 20 is 60. By the time you had Osun, Oyo, and the rest of Yoruba land, we're talking about 80% of Nigerian gross domestic product coming from Yoruba land. Yet, Hausa Fulani and your presidency are controlling your presidency. Hausa Fulani are controlling your military. They are controlling your intelligence. People who contribute next to nothing. And you claim to be the most educated out of Africa. You're not. Nonsense. National Housing Fund contribution. Do you know how much it is? It is 2.5% of your basic salary, which is deducted and remitted into the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. Do you know what that organization is called? Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. So because 85% of all registered companies in Nigeria are located in Yoruba land, Yoruba is paying 85% of the National Housing Fund contribution. So the Federal Mortgage Bank, every money there, 85% of all the money in the Federal Mortgage Bank belongs to Yoruba people to build housing for us. But they are using it to build houses for Hausa Fulani in the north. Aye Yoruba ti baje. And you open your mouth and say, Owo epo lano, where is the nonsense? Owo epo. Owo epo kole no. These are the taxes collected by the government. And Yoruba are the one paying it. We paid 85% of the National Housing Fund contribution. Yoruba literally go to Lagos. People are sleeping in toilets, Yoruba people. People are sleeping on the bridge. Yet, Yoruba is responsible for 85% of the funding of the Federal Mortgage Bank. Can you go to that Federal Mortgage Bank and get a loan to build a house as Yoruba citizen? No, a Hausa man will get a better opportunity than you, but they are not the one contributing the money. If you go to Federal Mortgage Bank now, who is there? All of the top staff are Hausa Fulani. Yet 85% of the funding belongs to the Yoruba. It's coming from the Yoruba nation. But you can open your mouth and abuse the English. You can open your mouth and abuse white Americans, right? But Hausa Fulani have turned you into nothing other than slaves. You should be ashamed, every Yoruba youth. You should be ashamed. And no focus. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the employee compensation scheme. I am still talking about the third sources of income of the federal government, which is Federal Inland Revenue Service. All of the revenue all of the taxes they collected. That's what I'm listing. For you to see how much Yoruba nation is contributing. But nothing to show. The best of our brain are in North America and across Europe, working like slaves. But they will open their mouths and be abusing white people. Whites have built their nation. When are you going to build your own nation, Yoruba? Because you have the same black skin with an Igbo man, with an Hausa man, with a Kanuri man, doesn't make you the same. You don't speak the same language. I speak Yoruba. I'm using English for this lecture alone. That's not my indigenous language. I don't like, as a matter of fact, I do not like to speak English. I'm proud speaking my language. What makes people the same is not the color of their skin, is their culture, is their language, is the norms and value system. Get some education, folks. You need to read. Try and have library. You cannot fight for your freedom when you have no clue in your brain. You can never fight for your freedom. And when you have clue in your brain, you can never be afraid of anything. You will not. I promise you. The young Yoruba for freedom will change the course of history. We are destined to change this. We will change this. Nothing can stop us. Eledumare is behind us. Federal Inland Revenue Service generates, on the average, every year 8 trillion naira, but they do not remit even 40% of the money. They don't remit it. So this is what they generated. The North as a whole, the 3 blocks from the North, the North Central, the Hausa Fulani Northwest, the Kanuri Northeast, collectively contribute only 12%, where Yoruba alone is contributing 80%. The South, excluding Ishakiri, and the Southeast together contribute the remaining 8%. And I'm going to explain to you how this is what you need to know now. How? Here is how the Yoruba generate 80% of the federal inland revenue taxes. I'm going to tell you this. All companies registered in Nigeria paid a portion of their profit as company tax is 30% of their profit. Education tax, 2% of their profit. Information technology tax, 1% of company's profit. Pension contribution, 18% of their profit. National Housing Fund contribution, 2.5%. Industrial Training Fund contribution, 1%. Employee compensation scheme, 1%. So all companies registered in Nigeria, they must pay a portion of their profit as corporate income tax, education tax, information technology tax, pension contribution, national housing fund contribution, industrial training fund contribution, and employee compensation scheme. So all the companies in Nigeria must pay all of this from their profit. Now, according to, we need to understand how much is the portion that the Yoruba are paying. I've simply told you that 80% of the 8 trillion naira generated by the Federal Inland Revenue Services every year comes from Yoruba land. 80%. So that means Hausa Fulani, like I said, only contributing 12%. Now, where is this 80% coming from Yoruba land? This is it. According to Corporate Affairs Commission, what I'm telling you tonight, you can cross-check it on Corporate Affairs Commission's website. It is called CAC. Their head office is at Abuja. They registered all companies in Nigeria. According to CAC, 85% of all companies registered in Nigeria are located within the Yoruba land. Interesting. Let me just quickly tell you this. Why are 85% of companies in Nigeria located in Yoruba land? It's very simple. 1, there is natural resources in Yoruba land. 2, there is human resources in Yoruba land. People are going to school. People are acquiring human capital development. So people are very smart across Yoruba land. This is why the companies are there. 3rd, there is stability in terms of security of life and property. The security of life and property. These 3 major factors are the reason why we have 85% of all registered companies in Nigeria located in Yoruba land. Raw material, human capital development, security of life and property. The Hausa Fulani youths are not going to school. They would rather go to Islamic study. So there is no human capital development there. The Canary youths are into terrorism. So how many companies want to go there? The Igbo youths are involved in organized crime in the east. And then the Niger Delta youth, they call them militant, but they are actually freedom fighters. Because for far so long, their resources has been used for the benefit of the Hausa Fulani, and the youth are now rising up and are saying, look, we can't take this nonsense anymore. But according to the Corporate Affairs Commission, 85% of all registered companies in Nigeria are located within Yoruba land. Do you know the implication of that? So that means that the Yoruba region of Nigeria is responsible for 85% of company income tax. The Yoruba nation is responsible for 85% of education tax. The Yoruba nation is responsible for 85% of information technology tax paid to the federal government. The Yoruba nation is responsible for 85% of pension contribution. We are responsible for 85% of national housing fund contribution. The Yoruba nation is responsible for 85% of industrial training fund contribution. And Yoruba nation is responsible for 85% of employee compensation scheme. We pay 85% of the company income tax in Nigeria. The Yoruba people pay 85% of the education tax. We pay this money. And the Yoruba youth will say, we're spending oil money. You're not spending oil money. People are paying tax. And I'm going to show you tonight. And this is what you're going to get to see. Let me now take it one step at a time. What is company income tax? For the benefit of those who do not understand. Yoruba land is responsible for 85% of company income tax paid to the federal government of Nigeria. But Yoruba land economy is not sustainable because the profit paid goes to finance economic growth and development in the north. We pay 85% of income tax, corporate income tax. They will take this money down to Abuja and they will share it according to the number of states, according to the number of local government, and according to population figure. Who has the highest state? Hausa Fulani. Who has the highest local government? Hausa Fulani. Who has more population? Hausa Fulani. Even though the population is fake. But it is, the money is generated by Yoruba people. 85%. You take this money down to the to Abuja and you give this money, the Hausa Fulani will take lion's share of this money. This is nothing other than slavery. Hausa Fulani are using your corporate income tax to fund their own lifestyle. That is where we pay Sultan of Sokoto. Yoruba money is paying salary of Sultan of Sokoto. It's paying all the governors in Hausa Fulani land. It's paying all their legislation. It's paying all of their politicians. It's paying all of their emir. The money that is generated from Yoruba land. This is nothing other than slavery. Even when the English colonized our ancestors, they were not as ruthless as the Fulani are. That is what they do with your company income tax. I'm going to shock the Yoruba youth, particularly when I talk about the education tax. I have just shown you now, and I've pointed out to you that according to the Corporate Affairs Commission, Corporate Affairs Commission's CAC registers companies in Nigeria. From their record, 85% of all registered companies in Nigeria are located in Yoruba land. And every company registered in Nigeria must pay 2% of their profit as education tax. So folks, 85% of education tax paid in Nigeria is paid by Yoruba people. Yoruba land is responsible for 85% of education tax collected by the federal government. That revenue is enough to fund free education all across Yoruba land, from primary school to high school, secondary school, up to university. If we use that 2% education tax paid by all the companies in Yoruba land to fund education in Yoruba land, our children will go to free school across Yoruba land. Our children will attend free secondary school across Yoruba land. Our children will attend free university across Yoruba land. But the gullibility of the Yoruba youth, they have allowed Hausa Fulani to take that money, that education tax, to take it down to Abuja, and Hausa Fulani will tell you that Hausa will get the lion's share from the money that is generated from Yoruba land. You can't treat any human being like that. We are slaves in Yoruba land. Our leadership, our political leaders, our religious leader, our business leader have destroyed our life. How can they allow Hausa Fulani to take our wealth? And we claim to be the most educated out of Africa. The education tax paid by companies in Yoruba land is enough, is sufficient to fund free education for all in Yoruba land. How did our law do it? It is from these taxes when we practice regional system of government. But since we have been practicing unitary system, Hausa Fulani, you will take your education tax down to Abuja and use it to fund the lifestyle of Hausa Fulani people. They will use it to fund the lifestyle of Hausa Fulani politicians. They will use it to fund the lifestyle of their emir, of their Sultan of Sokoto. And you, Yoruba, you open your mouth and claim to be the most educated out of Africa. You are not educated. You are a slave. You are slaves. But my generation is here to stop it, and we will stop it for good, believe you me. One generation come at a time to change the course of history, and it is my generation. It is our generation. Nigerian Customs Service collects import and excise duty levied on cost, insurance, and freight. So goods and services that are coming into Nigeria from abroad, we pay custom duty on it. Goods and services that have been produced in Nigeria that have been exported abroad, we pay custom duty on it. So every year, the Nigerian Customs Service generates on the average 2 trillion naira. In 2016, the Nigerian Customs Service claimed that they generated only 850 billion. In 2017, they just released their results saying that they only generated 1 billion naira. But look, this fact and the truth is this: every year, on the average, the Nigerian Customs Service generates 2 trillion naira. They don't declare it. They don't declare all the money being generated. This is the part of the nonsense we have under the unitary system. If the Yoruba were to be controlling their ports and waterways, all of this money would be declared and go into the coffer of the Oduduwa Republic. But under the unitary system that we practice, Hausa Fulani are everywhere. So they take so much money. They take 2 trillion naira every year from the Nigerian custom. They declare 1 billion. The rest is to fund their lifestyle. The rest is to pay to the Sultan of Sokoto, to the Emir of Kano, to the Emir of this Yoruba money. So you just relax with me. Just relax with me. You're going to get this far. According to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, with the agreement of the Nigerian Custom Service, there are 11 custom commands across Yoruba land, generated 90% of the Nigerian Custom Services revenue. The Yoruba alone. Please be minded of the fact that the NNPC revenue I just described a few minutes ago, out of the 3 trillion naira generated by NNPC, South contributed 80% of that 3 trillion. The Yoruba generated 20%. Now, I'm talking about the Nigerian Customs Service. On the average, the Nigerian Customs Service generated every year 2 trillion naira. It is not all of that that they declare anyway. Out of this 2 trillion naira, Yoruba alone generate 90% of the Nigerian Customs Service. And where is this Customs Service in Yoruba land? I'm going to name them. Apapa Wharf. Let me give you the figure of what was generated in 2016. I have the figure for 2017, but this figure have not been confirmed yet. Apapa Command generated about 300 billion in 2016. Tinker Command generated 256.4 billion in 2016. Lagos Airport Command generated 40 billion in 2016. Kirikiri Custom Command generated 30 billion in 2016. Seme Command generated 10.5 billion in 2016. Tinker 2 Command generated 8 billion in 2016. Lagos Industrial Command generated 7 billion in 2016. Ogun Command generated about 12 to 15 billion in 2016. Oyo Osun Command generated 14.8 billion in 2016. Ondo Ekiti Command generated 517 million in 2016. Kwara Kogi Command generated 2 billion in 2016. What I'm saying invariably is this. Every year, the Nigerian Customs Service generates, on the average, around 2 trillion naira. Yoruba alone are contributing 90% of that 2 trillion naira. South is contributing 5% of that 2 trillion naira. The Hausa Fulani are contributing about 5%. There's nothing that is coming from Igbo land in terms of the Nigerian Customs Service. Nothing significant is coming from Igbo land. What is coming from Hausa land is just 5% of the customs revenue. But Yoruba alone, we are producing 90% of the Nigerian Customs Service revenue. But folks, when you get this money down to Abuja every month, the Hausa Fulani that is contributing only 5% of the Nigerian custom revenue will get the lion's share. The Yoruba that is contributing 90% of the Nigerian custom revenue, we don't even get up to 10% in return. So again, what does this signify? It simply means slavery. When the English colonial thugs were colonizing our ancestors, they were not as ruthless as Fulani were, or as Fulani are today. The Fulani are so ruthless, they have taken Yoruba to be slave. The English were not even taking our resources the way Fulani are taking our resources in Yoruba land. How can a government agency, the Nigerian Customs Service, generates 2 trillion every year, and 90% of this money is generated in Yoruba land? But when you take this money down to Abuja every month, Hausa Fulani will pick up the lion's share. It doesn't happen anywhere. You see, this kind of treatment can only happen to people who are slaves. But you and I agree that slavery is long gone. But Hausa Fulani are still enslaving the Yoruba nation. So tonight I'm explaining to you why and how the Yoruba alone generates 49% of the income of Nigeria and 80% of the gross domestic product of that country. Folks, we're going to stop this. Nobody should accept this. No one should accept this. So this information I'm about to give about NNPC is a fact. According to the NNPC records, Akwa Ibom State, Delta State, River State, Bayelsa State, and Cross River State, these 5 South states produce 89% of all the crude oil in Nigeria. Are people getting me? This is from NNPC record. According to NNPC record, Akwa Ibom State, Delta State, River State, Bayelsa State, and Cross River State. These 5 South states produce 89% of the crude oil in Nigeria. 89%. Also, from the NNPC records, Ondo and Edo State produce 10% of Nigerian crude oil. Ondo and Edo State produce 10%. Imo and Abia State. And listen, I know some of the Igbos will be emotional about when you say nothing other than fact. They don't want to hear the fact. But this, what I'm saying, is from the NNPC record. It's a statement of fact. Imo and Abia State produce less than 1%. Get this, less than 1% of the crude oil produced in Nigeria. Imo and Abia State. There is nothing, absolutely nothing coming from Anambra State. So these 3 Igbo states collectively produce less than 1% of Nigeria crude oil. According to NNPC record, let me repeat again. Akwa Ibom State, Delta State, River State, Bayelsa State, and Cross River State. These 5 states collectively produce 89% of the crude oil in Nigeria. 89% of the crude oil in Nigeria. Ondo State and Edo State together produce 10% of the crude oil in Nigeria. Imo State, Abia State produce less than 1%. Anambra State, there is absolutely nothing, 0% of crude oil being produced in Anambra State. These are records from the NNPC. Now, having said this, what this implies simply means is that the South region contributes 80% of the NNPC revenue. Like I said earlier, NNPC generates on the average around 3 trillion naira. They do not remit all of this money. Sometimes they only remitted about 40% of this revenue. This is as a result of what is going on in Nigeria. Everybody is just corrupt one way or the other. So South region alone contributes 80% of the NNPC revenue. The Yoruba region, including Ondo State plus Ishekiri, part of Delta, because Ishekiri land is Yoruba land. Ondo State plus Ishekiri land together contribute the remaining 20% of the NNPC revenue. So for the 3 trillion naira generated by NNPC annually, the South region contributes 80% of this revenue. The Yoruba region contributes 20%. Folks, and I will repeat this and I'll say this again, there is nothing significant coming from Igbo land in terms of oil revenue of the NNPC. Please, I want you to note that there is no single contribution to the NNPC Henny from Hausa Fulani Northwest, Kanuri Northeast, and Middle Belt North Central. Everybody, this is where you have to be very patient. You have to calm down and listen to me attentively. NNPC is #1 sources of revenue of the federal government. This agency of government generates on the average 3 trillion naira every year. Where is this 3 trillion naira coming from? 80% of this 3 trillion naira comes from the South region. The remaining 20% comes from Yoruba land. There is no significant contribution from Igbo land. There is 0% contribution from Hausa Fulani land. There is 0% contribution from Kanuri land. There is 0% contribution from the Middle Belt. But the shocking reality is this. Under the sham unitary system we operate in Nigeria, the people who contributed 0% to the NNPC revenue, that is the Hausa Fulani Northwest, the Kanuri Northeast, the Middle Belt North Central, get the lion's share of NNPC revenue. Yoruba youth. If you ask me, what is this? I will tell you nothing other than slavery. Even when the English colonial talks, were colonizing Yoruba land, they were not as ruthless as Fulani are today. They are not as ruthless. So you imagine, you ask yourself, how can Yoruba produce 20% of the 3 trillion naira of the NNPC revenue, but Hausa Fulani that contributes 0% is getting more money from this NNPC revenue than the Yoruba nation? So when you continue to complain that you don't have medical facility for your children, Yoruba people, it is because you have allowed your revenue to fund development in Hausa Fulani land. When you continue to complain that you can't get a job as a graduate, it is because you have allowed your revenue to be controlled by the Hausa Fulani. How can Yoruba contribute 20% of NNPC revenue, but every month when we share this revenue, the Hausa Fulani would get the lion's share in something they contribute 0% to? This is why we have to end this. It is our generation that is going to end this. Let me say this to you, all of you. We conservative in Yoruba, we are ruling that country, Nigeria, from 2023, without which there will be war in that country. We cannot be the majority population in Nigeria. We cannot be the economic backbone for minority Fulani to be ruling us, or for Igbo, who contributed nothing to the running of the federal government of Nigeria, to be ruling over us. No, we will shut down Lagos if you don't give us power. Gone are the days that you rely on irresponsible, self-serving career politicians in England. They are stealing our wealth, we know. You know that we took that port in 1994. A lot of you don't know that Apapa port, we seized it from Fulani. English Royal Navy came and killed Yoruba people. But how many Yoruba who remembers that now? Do you treat English in Lagos and Ibadan? English live predominantly in Yoruba. Do you treat them the way they treat us in England? English that discriminate against us in England. Do you discriminate against them? You continue to allow them. The stupid governor of Ondo State, Akeredolu, he opened Nigeria-British trade rubbish recently. That was the same thing that Sanwo-Olu continue to do. We don't need English. We need America. In fact, Israeli, they are more important. Israel as a country is more important to the economic growth and development of Yoruba than England. Stupid government that we have, they continue to do business with English. When English are discriminating against us in England, when English continue to support Fulani to suppress and subjugate us, and they continue to do that, giving them business content. I never knew that Awolowo in 1954 addressed the Yoruba people, in which he classified Yoruba nation into 3 groups of people. Number 1, the educated class. Number 2, the knowledgeable class. And number 3, ignorant masses. We have been calling Yoruba society as an illiterate society for so long. I never knew that Awolowo did the same thing. Awolowo said that the ignorant masses are the majority, that they would rather choose whites to govern over them than educated Yoruba to rule over them. He identified the reason why they are doing that, because they lack knowledge. So folks, if you look at the caliber of Sunday Igboho group of people and Professor Banji Akintoye, if you look at them, they protest in New York, they are on the streets in London. You ask them why they want to do a republic. They don't have any other reason other than to show the killings of Hausa Fulani of our people. Fake video most of the time, that's what they do. Hausa are killing you. This is not the real reason why you should demand for Oduduwa Republic. It is because you lack the basic knowledge. You lack the understanding. And it is because you don't read. That is the problem. For instance, there is extreme inequality in Nigeria, whereby, for instance, Hausa Fulani says that it is against Sharia law to consume alcohol, to eat pig. But Yoruba people, they will consume pig, sausage roll, for instance. They will drink beer, pay VAT on these goods, consume. The VAT will go to Abuja. The lion's share of the VAT will go to Hausa Fulani, because they put it in the constitution that when the money gets to Abuja, the region with the highest state
the region with the highest local government, the region with the highest population, the region with the highest landmass would take the lion's share of the money. That is extreme inequality. This should be one of the bases of your argument for wanting out of Nigeria. You are the one paying the taxes, but it is Hausa Fulani that are enjoying it. This is captured in my book, The Commonwealth of the Yoruba Region. The reason behind our inclination towards the Oduduwa Republic. Why is it that we want the Oduduwa Republic? The liberals don't understand. If you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. He will never read. And you want to do a republic when you are not well informed. One of the basic reasons for demanding of the Oduduwa Republic is extreme inequality. When I was growing up, I wrote JAM twice. JAM twice as a Yoruba citizen. I couldn't get to school. I waited at home for 2 years. They introduced a quota system saying that Hausa Fulani children, if they want to go to university, they just need to score 10 out of 400. But we Yoruba people, we need to score over 300 to get into university. This is extreme discrimination on our children. It is a basis for you to argue that Nigeria should, Yoruba should opt out of Nigeria. So because you're not reading, you are not knowledgeable, you just dance on the streets, you dance around, you wave horrible flags. Why do you want out of Oduduwa Republic? Fulani ti pawa o, Fulani ti bayewa je o. You cannot argue intelligently as a people because you don't read. We have just watched a documentary about the white South Africans. They also want out of South Africa. Their region is called Western Cape region. They're saying they want out. They're complaining about extreme inequality, saying that their resources have been taken away to fund other areas, saying that since they had their region, they have never voted for the president of that country. It is other people that have always been voting for the president of South Africa. They want out. They complain about unemployment. It is the same thing in Yoruba land. Here, in this book, Keep Igbo of Yoruba land. The title is just a clickbait. I discuss more than Igbo. For example, I wrote about unemployment here. You go to, we have NNPC in Yoruba land, NNPC depots in Yoruba land. We have in Igbo land. We have in Hausa Fulani land. If you go to NNPC depot in Hausa Fulani land, 100% of the people that are working there are Hausa Fulani citizens. If you come to NNPC depot also in Yoruba land, it is Hausa Fulani wearing Babariga dress in our depot. Our children don't have jobs. If you go to police in Hausa Fulani land, it is Hausa Fulani citizens. 90% of the time that are working there come to police barracks, police stations across Yoruba land. It is predominantly occupied by non-Yoruba people. Our own children don't have jobs. Unemployment is a legitimate reason for you to demand for Oduduwa Republic. Go to military barracks. We told you there are 26 military formations in Lagos State alone. 26 different formations, all occupied by Hausa Fulani people. And we come abroad to wash toilets. We can't get jobs in Yoruba land. Unemployment is a legitimate reason for you to advocate for Oduduwa Republic, for you to reject the unitary system. This is captured in this book. Keep Igbo off Yoruba land. High level of crime. High level of crime is a legitimate reason for you to demand for Oduduwa Republic, for you to demand that Yoruba should opt out of Nigeria. Not you dancing on the street. In this book, Keep Igbo off Yoruba land, I capture the situation of Mr. Adewale and Mr. Okoro. I'll give you the page that they are. I think chapter 14. Yeah. Chapter 44. Adewale versus Okoro, page 110. You must have forgotten, all of you. You must have forgotten what happened in 2016. Ayodele Adewale, he was a Yoruba citizen and the chairman of Amuwo Odofin local government. It's captured in this book. Ignore the title. Buy the book. You can get it on the Amazon. Ayodele Adewale, he was then the chairman of the Amuwo Odofin local government in 2016. A chairman had to go onto the street to protest against Mr. Okoro, Dan Okoro, an Igbo citizen from Igbo land. He was the assistant commissioner of police in charge of Area E Command in Festac Town, Lagos. We're talking about high rate of crime. Mr. Okoro and Igbo, a police officer in charge, assistant commissioner of police in charge of Area E in Yoruba land, when Yoruba children don't have job. Mr. Okoro would take money from criminal to use haulage, you know, those truck, haulage vehicles, big truck, to ply along Festac, killing people, damaging the road, which was against the law of Lagos State. A number of people have been killed, crimes have been committed. The local government chairman, Ayodele, he had to carry placard to be protesting on the streets because an Igbo man is the assistant commissioner of police in charge of that area who has refused to obey the law. This is a legitimate reason for you to ask for Oduduwa Republic, for you to say that you want out of Nigeria because of this system. How can we have a police formation in Yoruba land? Our children cannot work there. You see, so if you are not knowledgeable, you cannot advocate for Oduduwa Republic on behalf of the Yoruba nation. Why? To check every 30 years, any Yoruba tó bá ti fẹ́ jà ní Nigeria, wọ́n máa ń gbé ìṣòro wá bá ní. Ibi tí ẹ̀kọ́ ti wọrí yín nìyẹn, ẹ wo gbogbo àwọn tó wá detail fún Oduduwa Republic yẹn lọ́ndà ìlànà ọmọ Oòduà. Gbogbo wọn máa attack Tinubu ni. Nítorí pé ẹ wà láyé ńgbà tí kéèsì Abíọ́lá ṣẹlẹ̀. Àwa kéré secondary school èmi wà. Bí wọ́n ṣe gbógun ti máa yẹn nìyẹn o. Àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá ló máa jáde. Àṣé wọn ń ṣe Yorùbá, àṣé àfi Yorùbá ni wọ́n. Àṣé àwọn míì kan lórúkọ Yorùbá, àṣé Ìgbò ni wọ́n. Wọ́n dẹ̀ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí máa attack. Ẹ̀rí nǹkan tó bá sanjọ́ sọ nígbà yẹn ni. Ó ní Abíọ́lá is not our Messiah. Ìjẹ́ wọ́n ṣe Yorùbá, Yorùbá ló mọ̀. So ibi tó yẹ kó rí yín ti já sí nìyẹn. Ibi tó yẹ kẹ́ ti gbọ́n. Kí ló dé every 30 years, 1963, 1993, 2023, every 30 years, wọ́n máa ń gbé ìṣòro wá bá Yorùbá ni. Lọ́sẹ̀ lé kẹ́kẹ́ stop láti máa attack Tinubu, òun ni Ọlọ́run rán sílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Mo sọ fún yín gangan, Awólọ́wọ̀ nígbà tí wọ́n ṣe ní ṣùtà, Democrat ló wà ní power. Abíọ́lá nígbà tí wọ́n ṣe ní ṣùtà, Democrat náà ló wà ní power. Ta ló wà ní power ń sìn l'Amẹ́ríkà? Democrat. Ibi tí ẹ ti máa mọ̀ pé Tinubu Ọlọ́run yàn fún yín ni ó máa crack ẹ̀. Ó máa get support Democrats. Ó máa lobby fún ni. Tó bá ti lè get support Democrats, game up. Kò sí nǹkan tí Igbo àti Fulani lè ṣe. Àwọn English dẹ̀ mọ̀ nǹkan kan pa Tinubu. Ipe is more closer to the Germans. Àwọn Germany ló máa wá, tó máa ní business, tó máa ní contract, tó máa ṣe construction lọ fún yín. Táwọn lọ ra weapon ìbọn bẹ́ẹ̀ kò ní lọ sọ́dọ̀ England. Torí every full-blooded Yorùbá tó kàwé, tó lóye, ó mọ̀ pé English problem náà jẹ́ fún Yorùbá. Wọ́n máa ń dà wá ni, wọ́n máa ń fẹ́ bà ìwà jẹ́. So torí ẹ̀ ní àbá gbogbo funfun jà. English nìkan la nífẹ̀ẹ́ sí. Wọ́n mọ̀ pé Tinubu á lọ sọ́dọ̀ àwọn French náà. Ṣebí French ní Togo and Benin Republic. Germany ló kọ́kọ́ ń control, ló kọ́kọ́ ń rule Benin Republic kó tó di pé wọ́n defeat wọn ní Second World War tí France gbà ó. Àwọn tó jẹ́ ká bá ṣe nìyẹn àti Portugal. Àwọn Portuguese ló máa ń tàbọn fún wa nígbà tá à ń bá àwọn English jà wọ̀. Wọ́n mọ gbogbo ilé ìtorí ẹ̀ náà ṣe gbógun wa. Torí ẹ̀ lẹ́rú ṣe ń bá àwọn fẹ́ ṣe congress àbí náà pè ní APC. bí wọ́n ṣe máa make sure pé Tinubu ò di ticket yẹn. Ìgbà yẹn lè máa rí gbogbo àwọn tó jókòó sórí Facebook náà tó máa sọ Odùduwà nation now, Odùduwà nation now. Inú wọn máa dùn ní tí Tinubu bá gba ticket. Wọ́n máa jubilate ni, because the only hatred tí wọ́n ní in common ní Tinubu, because every 30 years no máa ń lò wọ́n. Half Yoruba ti pọ̀ jù nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Àwa tá jẹ́ full-blooded, we are endangered species. Tí à ń rọ bàbá wá sílé wa ní Nàìjíríà, tó bá ti mọ̀ pé full-blooded Yorùbá ni wá, wọ́n máa pa wá ni. Àwọn Fúlàní, wọ́n máa ń pa full-blooded.
Bàbá wa Bishop Ladigo, ẹ ṣé, ẹ kú àdúró tì wá. Ẹran aṣọ díẹ̀ náà ẹ bá lọ ka ìwé wọn, tẹ̀lé lọ wo ìhùwàsí wọn. Àwa mọ̀ ní time June 12. Wọ́n sọ pé Muslim l'Abíọ́lá àwọn ò ní jà, pé àwọn ò ní sọ̀rọ̀. Bishop Ladigo sọ̀rọ̀ fatafata, wọ́n sọ̀rọ̀ ayé gbọ́, ó mì láti bí, ó mì dé London, ó mì dé America. Ọlọ́run ò ní táyà yín, ẹ̀mí gbogbo àtàlàfíà ara a máa wà pẹ̀lú yín sà. Ẹ ṣé àdúpẹ́, a lè dọ́pẹ́ náà tán. Ọpẹ́ ńlá ni, torí ipò tẹ́ ẹ ṣe, wàhálà tẹ́ ẹ ṣe, orí ẹ̀ la wà lẹ́nu yìí sà. Arọra dọ́gbọ́n sí títí tẹ́ ẹ dẹ̀ ń sọ fún wa, ọgbọ́n tẹ̀ ń kọ́ wa láti gbogbo bishop, ọgbọ́n tẹ̀ kọ́ wa náà la lò wípé alliance májà láti wà, a lè fọ́ ìlú. Lábàdẹ̀ máa fọ́, kò ń sórí wa ló ti máa wá. Ok, adẹ̀ aṣọwọ́pọ̀ adìjọba náà. Ìjọba náà la fà ọmọ wa sí. Àǹfààní díẹ̀díẹ̀ tí ń wá sísàlẹ̀ mọ̀ kò tí tó. Adúpọ̀lọ́ yín lẹ́nìí, àwa la ní vice president, àwa la ní works, Rájí Fáṣọlá, àwa la ní Rao, Interior. Sunday Dáre, wọ́n bá máa rán mi létí àwọn kan kọ́ mi ń kéwú. Wọ́n jẹ́ kí n lo táìmù. Adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín. Àti dé ibi tí a fi máa regret ẹ̀.
Because as well as Yoruba land is the economic backbone of Nigeria. Yoruba land is the economic backbone. Which I'm going to go back to. The way also Lori reason that we failed with Wariko. The way sort of Lori reason. The Commonwealth of the Yoruba Kingdom. This one spoke about in Yoruba country. This is what this book spoke about. You often in details both political administration under regional government. Anyway, you can get them on Amazon. I wrote them. It is published in Igbo. Igbo should buy Igbo, a clear and present danger in Yoruba land. But you're fucking up. We're not making a joke. We're serious. We might be young. We have the brain. And we have the knowledge. You Yoruba, you are the economic backbone of Nigeria. And you Kema rule as president the same way Tiago Funfun rule America, the same way English change the prime minister in UK, and you Yoruba Kema president in Nigeria. And so Yoruba economic backbone. Yoruba account for 80% of Nigeria's gross domestic product. You don't pay any gross domestic product. We're talking about manufacturing sector. We're talking about financial sector. We're talking about service sectors. We're talking about communication. We're talking about technology and entertainment. Economy, manufacturing, financial, service sector, communication sector, technology sector, and entertainment. Everything in Yoruba, the economic of Nigeria is in Yoruba. 80%. Lagos State alone, contribute 40% of the gross domestic product of Nigeria. Lagos State alone, which means that Lagos State alone is controlling 40% of Nigeria manufacturing sector, financial services sector, services sector, communication sector, technology sector, and entertainment. Lagos State alone controlling 40%. This is just one state in Yoruba land. Ogun State controls 20% of Nigeria GDP. Another state in Yoruba land. These two states contribute 60% of the gross domestic product of Nigeria. By the time you had all the other Yoruba states, Osun, Ondo, Oyo, Ekiti, part of Kwara, part of Kogi, part of Delta, and Akoko Edo local government in Edo, Yoruba will contribute more than 80% of Nigeria gross domestic product. That is your power. Agbara yin niyen. Agbara yin. What is Igbo contributing? Nothing. And these people want to compete with you, saying that they want to contest and they want zoning. Are you crazy? Why is black people suppose zoning in America? Fulani contributed nothing. Won't contribute anything to the gross domestic product of Nigeria. Nigeria is ranked 27th largest economy in the world in terms of nominal GDP and the 24th largest in terms of the purchasing power. We are the largest economy in Africa, Nigeria. All of this time, Boko Haram, Nile Kanuri, Nigeria all reduced in terms of the being the greatest economy in Africa. No! All of this time, Niger Delta, militancy, blue. Anything affect Nigeria? No. But Sokoto, Kano, Kaduna, anything affect Nigeria? No. Bobo Shikanso, sit at home. Ni Ile Igbo, Biafra. Anything affect Nigeria? No. Why? Because Ile Yoruba continue to survive. Teba shut down Ile Bobo Nigeria ma dawuni. Ente mabara te ni Igbo, mama la din sile fun Igbo. Igbo ama ba yin sun, Igbo ama bímọ fún yín. Ẹ wá sọ pé títorí pé bímọ fún Igbo, Ile Yoruba gbọ́dọ̀ máa jóná. Ẹ máa àwọn ọmọ yín máa graduate as doctors, wọ́n máa lọ sí America, wọ́n máa lọ sí England wá teach wọn. Mosquito máa jẹ yín wọn, ẹ máa kú. Everybody there poor le Yoruba. Gbogbo owó yín pátápátá Igbo àti Fulani country. Wọ́n kò bọ̀ fi threaten yín. Ẹ mọ̀ bọ́n ṣe lobby. Àwọn tí ò ní, wọ́n á sọ pé àwọn fẹ́ máa jọ zone presidency pẹ̀lú yín. Igbo sọ pé òun fẹ́ jẹ president Nigeria. Igbo tí ò sí anything to contribute. To bá shut down Èkó lásán, wá rí pé wọ́n máa bẹ̀yìn fún presidency ni. Wọ́n fún Tinubu lógun, wọ́n gbógun fún lọ́tún lósìn. Ẹ dúná sí Àpápá wọ̀. Pápápá, mọ̀ wọ́n ti kó sójà Amẹ́ríkà síbẹ̀ ń sìn. Amẹ́ríkà sọ pé òun fẹ́ protect interest o, national interest o. Ẹ̀yin lẹ lówó, torí ẹ̀ máa ṣe ń wá, ṣé ilẹ̀ Igbo náà lọ ni, ṣé ilẹ̀ Haúsá náà lọ ni. Ẹni tó bá lówó ló lówó, ẹ̀yin lẹ gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́ president Nàìjíríà. Tí wọ́n bá gbà kẹjẹ, ẹ gbọ́dọ̀ bà Èkó jẹ́. Tẹ́ bá bè Èkó jẹ́, ìyá jẹ ọmọ yín, ẹ̀yin gan ojú yín á rí ojú yẹn á rí nǹkan tí ẹ̀ tí ẹ̀ lè rí